All right, we're going to get started in just a little bit. We're heading to Italy. Well, typically, when you hear me say that we're heading to Italy, it's because we're going to present a Necky sewing machine, right? But today we're actually presenting a somewhat rare, excuse me, a somewhat rare, that was a scary voice, a somewhat rare class 15. And I'm going to give you the serial number. I know we've given it to you in a previous live stream so you could kind of do some homework and look it up in advance. But I'm guessing your dog or your cat or your gerbil probably ate your homework. So you don't have those notes anymore as far as the serial number. And you're saying, hey, give it to us again so we can try to look it up and date this machine. And you're going to find that you're going to be surprised when you look it up because she's a lot older than she looks, kind of like Susie and a lot of the ladies in the cow country family because they live right and they eat healthy and they stay active and they look a lot younger than a lot of other folks. Susie and I have noticed that since we've come to the South, that there are some folks that stay active and take care of themselves and they stay youthful. And there's some that spend way too much time sitting around. And that ages you quick, doesn't it? So we're going to try to see if we can date this machine. And then we're going to put her to work. But I got to get some more sew-offs cut first. I've got to cut some denim. I'm going to cut some vinyl material and maybe some ribbon material as well. We're going to go back to our tact of taking this machine through a wide variety of different sewing materials and see how she does. So let me look up that number and then I'll pass it along to, let's see who's in the live chat. Okay. We've got our dear friends, Candido and Rachel from the Hudson Valley in New York State. So I think I will text the serial number either to Candido or to Rachel. Yeah, why don't I do that? I'll send them the serial number. And then if they would be so kind as to post it in the live chat, and then everyone else can work on looking it up and getting us a date for this machine, okay? So let me do this. Let me go ahead and send the serial number. I've got to look up Rachel and Candido. Bear with me for a second, if you would. Phones always seem to move slow, but they move even slower when you're trying to look something up on a live stream. They move real slow. So again, I'm going to try to send this to Candido and Rachel. And then if they would go ahead and post that in the live chat, please. Okay, I think I've got the serial number finally. Let me just double check it. Okay, I just sent it. I just sent it to Candido and Rachel. So hopefully they'll get that pretty quick. About 1,000 miles to New York, but text messaging moves pretty quick sometimes. And once they get that, they can post it in the live chat. And we'll see what the date is on this machine. Based on what you're seeing on screen right now, I think you're going to be surprised. I'll send it to Rachel's cell phone as well, just so that they've got it in case one cell phone is off or down or whatever. Then they'll both have it. My fingers are not typing what I'm telling them to type so far this morning. There we go. So I've sent it to Candido and Rachel. And I'm hoping that they will be able to post that in the live chat. And then we'll get rolling with this live stream pretty quick. Not real quick. It's kind of a slow Tuesday morning, and you may have seen a character go by the screen a little bit ago that you didn't recognize. It's because you don't see him very often, but he is our representative for all Italian sewing machines. Let me see if I can get him to. He's a little bit shy. He's a little bit shy, but let me see if I can get him to come out one more time, and maybe you can all help me name him. I don't believe he has a name. I don't believe he has a name, so that way we can name him and get him out there for everybody to meet. Let's see here. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. It looks like we also have the owner here, who the last time I heard from her, she was heading up into the mountains. So I didn't know if she would have cell service or Wi Fi service. But Joanna, who is from Italy and brought this machine from Italy, is in the live chat. So if any of you want to interact with the owner, looks like Joanna is in the live chat. She's in the house. She's in the house. So I'm going to put on a little bit more Italian music. I'm going to see if I can entice our Italian representative to come out and just briefly be seen. I don't know if he will. He's kind of shy. We'll see. Oh, he's fun. He's a fun guy. He's just really shy. He's just a shy guy. All right, a little bit more Italian music while we're looking up that serial number, okay? Let me just pause the music real quick. I don't see that. Maybe I missed it, but I don't see that Candido or Rachel posted the serial number in the live chat yet. I don't see that they posted it. Did not get your text, Scott. Okay. I sent it to Rachel too, but let me have a backup plan. Let me send the serial number also to, let me see, I think Teresa. Teresa is in the live chat as well from Wisconsin. Let me send it to Teresa. And while we're waiting to see if it comes through on Candido's side, we can go ahead and get that machine dated and figure out what kind of machine it is, right? Well, I think the title gives that away. But let me see if I can send it to Teresa as well. Yeah, it looks like it went through to Candido and Rachel, but who knows with technology, right? Who knows with technology? You never know. Let me see here. I'll send it to Teresa. Hold on. Scrolling. Okay, got it. Okay, it's heading towards Teresa, and that way, if it doesn't come through on Candido and Rachel's side out in New York, then we can have Teresa in the interim go ahead and get it posted, okay? 2651. Just double checking my typing. Yeah, I just got a text from Candido, but he didn't get my text. Let me see if I can. I'll send it to Teresa and Candido. And Teresa, just hold off for a second. Let me see if it'll go through to Candido this time. Otherwise, you're my backup girl. All right, copy and paste. Copy and paste. Okay, I sent it again. So I just sent it to Candido again. I sent it to Teresa. We'll give Candido and Rachel a little bit of time out in New York to see if that text comes through with the serial number for Joanna's machine. If it doesn't, then Teresa, give it about a less than a minute. Go ahead and post it if you would, please. Rachel got it. Okay, good. I see it now. I see it. Okay. Yeah, I sent it to Rachel and Candido, so I have no idea. Technology is a little bit of a mystery, isn't it? It sometimes works, it sometimes don't work. It don't work at all. All right. Let me put on a little bit more music while we're getting that looked up. And whoever wants to post the information first, the month, the day, the year, and the production group size as well of this rare model 15-88. You don't see 15-88s pop up very often. Okay, here we go. A little bit more. I typed in Italian music. I don't know if this is really Italian music, but let's use our imagination. We're at Olive Garden down in, oh, wherever it is. Susie, where is Olive Garden in this area? Down in Tennessee somewhere. Any rate, here we go. And I think that's the end of my Italian music. I think I've got one other track of Italian music, but you just don't know with YouTube. You type in Italian music, and sometimes you get music that might be Italian, but it ain't. So yeah, you just never know with YouTube. They try hard though. They got a lot of stuff going on. I get it. I get it. All right. I didn't want to cut that ragtime song off in the middle, so I decided to stop it. But I put that little ragtime piece on there because Sheen came from an era where I believe ragtime was a thing, right? In the 1920s. And I'm just going to peek and see if anybody typed the info yet. See if anybody typed the info in there yet. Let's see here. Oh, Miss Teresa just typed it. October 31st, 1933. I got a different date than that. Teresa. Somebody help fact check what Teresa typed in, because when I looked it up, I got a different date than what Teresa just typed in. And I'll go ahead and look it up as well right now, just to make sure I didn't make a mistake. I better move this camera over a little bit before I knock it over. Yeah, she's gorgeous, isn't she? She's absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Um, and the patina on Joanna's machine from Italy was really, really quite nice. But I did quite a cleanup on all of the chrome and the metal parts and everything else. And then we had to replace the upper tension as well. There was an issue, several issues actually, several issues with the upper tension. So it has an original Singer upper tension, but it's not the original that was on the machine when it came to the workshop, because that had some issues going on with it. That had some issues. All right, I'm going to double check. I'll put on a little bit more Italiano music, and I am going to look up that serial number myself. I didn't get that date that Teresa typed in, and maybe I made a mistake, but hold on a second. All right, I just fact checked it myself, and I gave them the serial number, but I'll give you the serial number verbally as well. So and that way, anyone that wants to double, triple check it to make sure that we got it right, that would be super. So the serial number on this machine, and we don't see this prefix letter very often, but it starts with the letter Y like Yankee, the letter Y like Yankee, and then the rest of the serial number is 902 6511. So Y like Yankee, 902 6511. And the earliest date in this series goes back to about 1920. But when you scroll down, you're looking for a 6-digit number starting with 9. And as you scroll down, I'd show it to you on my laptop, but I don't think it'll show up properly. But as you scroll down in the Y series, you get down probably about almost halfway. And you've got a grouping that goes from 768,331 through 998,330. So 768,331 998,330. So it goes through a fairly good sized block of manufacturing serial numbers. And that's where this Italian beauty would fall, because the serial number starts with 902. And in that series, it shows it as a 15K. More specifically, it's a 15-88K that was made over in Europe. And they always seem to give a lot of the series numbers credit for the European marketplace rather than specific countries sometimes. But within that series, they made a fairly large, actually quite a large group, a production group size of 230,000 sewing machines. That was a very big group for that 15K series. And it was born January 12th, 1923. So make note of that in the live chat if you would. The Y series again, 902-6511. And if you look it up on ISMAX, you'll find out it's within that block that I gave you. It's within that block of it's within that block of 768331 through 998330. And that was a 15K. A lot of machines made in that group size, 230,000, with a birth date of January 12th, 1923. Yeah, 1923. So there you go. And it's always good to double check ourselves, right? It's like Ronald Reagan used to say, trust but verify. We always want to get things right. And I mess up sometimes. I miss the mark sometimes. And we can all double check each other. So it works out nicely. All right, that's a perfect place to end right there. And I noticed that Tim just typed in the live chat that it is Dairy Month of Wisconsin, where I originally hail from. That's my stomping ground. I was spent most of my life in Wisconsin, and now I'm a Kentuckian, and very happy to be a Kentuckian. But in honor of National Dairy Month, or whatever Tim just typed, where is it? National. Where did Tim type that? Aha. Well, anyway, it's National Dairy Month, so I'm going to show off my cool cow that our friend TJ, Tatiana Juliet, I just repaired those two Swedish beauties, the one that got fried by an electrical surge. So in honor of our Wisconsin friends and in honor of National Dairy Month, yeah, Wisconsin is still the dairy state, right? Even though California is trying to be a bully and trying to push Wisconsin out of a lot of the markets with their dairy stuff out there, we know where the real cows are, don't we? We know where the real cows are. Yeah, right here. Whoa, back up, girl. Yeah, isn't she adorable? TJ from the great state of Tennessee made this as a thank you. Whoa, 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 whoa. Made this as a thank you for me being able to resurrect her two machines that were a lot. They were really troubled. They were really troubled. One got fried from an electrical surge. The other one she got on Facebook Marketplace, and it was a mess too. But they are happy, happy Swedish girls again. And she even sent me a picture. I should pull that picture up. Hold on a second. I should pull that picture up that she sent me of what she just made on Grandma Bev's machine after I repaired it for her. She made this cool stuffed animal. And she also wrote a nice little thing too. Let me see if I can find it. Looking. I get a lot of messages. So when I'm trying to look something up, I've got to scroll and scroll and scroll. I get messages all the time, and it keeps me hopping. Okay, so this is the cool, I think it's like a little baby dinosaur. If anyone wants to chime in and tell me what, I think it's a baby dinosaur. But this is, hold on a second. So I'll read to you what TJ wrote. She says, "Hey, just wanted to say thank you again. I just finished my first stuffed animal on Grandma's machine in like 6 months, and it's so much nicer to work with than the machine I borrowed while it was broken. Where the wings and spikes overlap on the back, there's a little bit where there's 14 layers of minky. That's kind of fun to say, isn't it? There's 14 layers of minky where the spikes overlap that had to be sewn together, and it went through them absolutely no problem, just like it's always done. I don't know that was something not every machine could do until it broke, and I had to use the other machines. Swedish beauties, when they're set up and optimized the way I do them, they are monsters. They are absolute monsters. Yes, they are. So I'll just show you the note here. That's the note I just read to you that TJ typed. Anyone that wants to explain what minky is, I would love to get an explanation of what minky is. Obviously, some sort of material, but I'm not a minky person. I don't think I've ever sewn minky, but hey, why not? So here's that little dinosaur. I was just having to pull it up real quick. Here's that little fella. So somewhere on this little fella, it's 15 layers thick of minky, whatever minky is. Yeah. There's the back of our little fella. I'm guessing maybe on his little tail or something like that. Maybe that's the thicker part. But at any rate, TJ, Tatiana Juliet, is really happy. Really happy. It's always great to have happy customers, isn't it? It's always good to have happy customers. And I think today, after this live stream, Joanna is going to be very happy with what this machine that she's going to be giving to her mom, who is also from Italy. I think she'll be really pleased with what this machine from 1923 is doing now. Yeah. So let's do our first sew off. I was going to play a little bit more Italian music, but I'm going to hold off on that and see if we can do our first sew off. Looks like we've been running about 36 minutes. I'm anticipating we're going to run probably about 2 hours today, maybe a little bit less. And I'm just seeing. All right, pause that music. So I'm going to be the motor today, right? This is going to be set up. This 1588 is going to be set up as a treadle machine by Joanna. And so I'm going to be powering it by turning the hand wheel by hand or by finger, depending on the sew off. So we're going to start with a real basic sew off. It's going to be just 2 layers of cotton with a stiffener from a fat quarter I got at Walmart. And our setup today, just so you know, our setup is going to be our go-to Schmetz 9014 needle. And with this machine, if you want to set it up properly, you need to make sure that the flat side of the needle is pointing to the left. When you slide that needle up in the needle socket on this 1588, the flat side goes to the left. And when you're threading it, we'll go through the basic threading of this machine. When you're threading it, when you finally get down to the needle, you're going to be threading that needle from right to left. Okay? So flat side to the left, threading when you get down to the needle from right to left through the eye of the needle. Okay? Really important you get that right. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad day with your class 15 machine, wherever you are in the world. It doesn't matter. You're still going to have a bad day. All right. Got to wipe my glasses off a little bit. And I will move the camera a little bit closer. That way you can admire that beautiful faceplate as well. There's our new tension unit that I installed. It's our new tension unit. And yeah, let me crank this off. I'm going to crank it off with my finger. And we're going to do the longest stitch possible with this 1588. So here we go. And on these class 15s, if you didn't know it, on these class 15 machines that have an oscillating hook system, an oscillating hook system means that hook doesn't go around in a circle like this. It goes back and forth like a pendulum. So on these oscillating hook machines, they tend to pull the thread heavy when you first launch. So when you're launching on a sew-off like this, it's not a bad idea to hold the ends of the thread as you initiate the sewing so you don't get like a little bird's nest on the bottom of the material. So you're going to see me reach around the edge here. Reach around the edge. Why don't I do it like, see how I can do this without blocking the camera. Maybe move the camera over just a little bit further. There we go. Now I think I can do it. Yeah, I'll kind of bend my arm down a little bit. So I'm going to hold those threads just initially as I launch, and then I'll crank this sew-off off, okay? And yeah, I know I'm not real fast, but I'm doing it with my finger, folks. I'm doing it with my finger. I'm not too slow. Got a little bit of a rhythm going there. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Oh, that is some gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. Top stitching. See, even though I held the thread, I get just a little bit of a thing on theirs, but I can fix that by just giving a little bit of a pull on that thread. There we go. And we'll see how many stitches per inch we're getting at the longest setting for this machine that belongs to Joanna from Italy. So we'll look at the stitching first. Yeah, very, very nice. This is our top stitching right here. Here's our top stitching. Wait for the camera to focus. The camera's thinking about focusing any second now. There it goes. There we go. Folks, that is drop dead gorgeous stitching right there. Let me go like this as well. The spacing, the formation of the stitches, it doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. That's absolutely lovely stitching. Love, 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 love that stitching. Now let's see how we did on the lock stitching. Let's turn this over and we'll look at the lock stitching. And it looks like my presser foot pressure is a little bit high, doesn't it? That's why we have that puckering there along the material edges where the stitching is. I've got our presser foot pressure turned up higher because we're going to be sewing leather too. And it's creating just a little bit of a pucker. So if you get that on your sew-offs at home in your sewing suite, reduce your presser foot pressure. The last machine I presented, you might remember that you had to do it on the screen, that Walt Disney machine. So wherever your presser foot pressure adjustment is, make that adjustment, and then you can get rid of that little puckering along the edges of the stitching there. But also the lock stitching is looking absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. Now we're going to reduce the stitch length on this 1588, and then we'll measure the stitches in both of these columns, okay? We'll measure the stitching on both of these columns. So on this 1588, it has a stitch lever right over here. I should probably just walk you around the machine real quick, shouldn't I? So here's obviously our upper tension unit right here. This is the unit that I replaced with the defective one that was on the machine. And when we're going to be threading this machine, let me move my little pedestal table out of the way. I'll take you from the spool on top. So from the spool on top, we're going to come across the machine like this. We're going to come through this little track right here. And then we're going to drop down and go around the tension on the back side of it right over here. We're going to draw that thread in from over here and come around to the front. And then we're going to go around this little resting point right there. We're going to go around that little resting point. And then we're going to come up through the spring. And then we come up to the take-up arm and we thread it from left to right. We go through this thread point right here on the front of the machine. And then we've got one more thread point right over here where my finger is. And then we're going to be threading that needle again from right to left. And the flat side is on the left side, okay? Which means our hook, our oscillating hook, as it's rocking back and forth like this, our hook is going to be on the left side. It's going to be on the left side of the needle as it grabs that thread in the sewing process, okay? So once again, I'll just go over it real quick. Coming off the top, we thread from the spool through here, down here, around the back, through the tension disc. And when you do this, make sure that your presser foot lever is up. Make sure your presser foot lever is up when you thread the machine, okay? You come around the back, you come through the tension discs, you come over that little metal piece right there. See how that thread is dipped over there? Come through the spring. Our spring is right there. I don't know if the camera will focus on it. There it is. Then we come up to the take-up arm. We thread the take-up arm from left to right. We then go over to here, this thread point here, this thread point down here, and then we thread the needle from right to left, okay? I hope that helps. And our bobbin, we can kind of see it down there. We'll open up this little door here. There you can see our bobbin case down there. And you can see that this particular bobbin case for this 1588 has a 11 o'clock finger position. And what do I mean by that? 11 o'clock finger position. Let me light that up for you a little bit. It's a little bit dark in there. It's got an 11 o'clock finger position, which means when that finger of the bobbin case is snapped in, that finger is pointing, if you were to imagine a clock, it's pointing right around where the 11 would be on the clock. There's other bobbin cases for 15 class machines where that finger is pointing to the 3 o'clock position or the 2 o'clock position. Actually, that's not correct. The 1 o'clock position. That's what I meant to say. So the finger on these class 15s is either going to be pointing at the 11 o'clock position like this one. Whoops. Pointing at the 11 o'clock position like this one, or it's going to be pointing at the 1 o'clock position. So if you ever have to order another bobbin case for a class 15 machine, you want to make sure that you order the right one, because if you get one where the finger is pointing the wrong way, you won't be able to snap it in. Okay? And when you put the bobbin into the case, imagine, actually, you know what? I'll show you in the book. I'll show you actually in the book, and that way you can see how they've shown it in the book. And I don't know if Joanna has a book or not for this machine. If she doesn't, we can work out a deal to make sure that she gets a book as well, so that her mom has it. But I'm guessing they probably have the original book. I would think they would. So this is a book that I have that was printed from an original. Let me back up the camera a little bit. This is the one I have that was printed from an original. And what I decided to do, because as all of us get older, it's hard to read those tiny little Singer books that are about half this size. So what I did is I worked with a printer to copy the original book and expand it about 60% or whatever it would be. So all of a sudden then the printing and everything is a lot easier to read than those tiny little original green Singer books. Pictures are bigger, the writing is bigger. And here's our bobbin now. And you can see when we're putting our bobbin in, imagine holding the bobbin case in your left hand, and then you have the thread coming over the top. See that? You have the thread coming over the top, and you slide it into that bobbin, which means as this is running, as the machine is running and pulling the thread from the bobbin case, our bobbin case is going to be turning clockwise. That's how you can double check it. Once you put your bobbin in your bobbin case, and you thread it through that bobbin case, if you pull that thread and it turns counterclockwise, then you've got that class 15 bobbin case threaded wrong. So unthread it, thread it again, and make sure when you pull on that thread with the bobbin case, almost as if it's in the machine, you know what I mean? As you're pulling that, as if it's in the machine, that pulling that thread, that bobbin should be turning clockwise, okay? But these reprints are really, really a blessing. I used to sell, but I mention them sometimes just because they're easier to read when they're this size versus tiny, tiny little sizes. They're so small, the original ones, right? All right. Let's do another row of stitching. And what I'm going to do real quick, first of all, I'm going to close my little door. There we go. And here we got our stitch length control right over here, a lever. As we're at the bottom here, we're going to get the longest stitch possible. And we'll actually measure them with my caliper so we'll know how long that is. But as you move it up, you can get into that fine range and do stitching somewhere between 25 to 30 stitches per inch. So if I move it like all the way up in this region right there, I'm going to be right around 25 to 30 stitches per inch. If I push it all the way up, I'm going to be sewing in reverse. I'm going to be sewing in reverse, okay? Yeah. Bring it back down. And now I'm going to move it up just about right about to there. We'll see if we can get a nice fine stitch, and we'll measure that as well. And this little adjuster here is to set boundaries. You can loosen this thumb screw, and then you can rotate that faceplate so that it will restrict how far you can move the lever. That is if you want to stay in a fixed position, okay? Here's our bobbin winder over here. Had to replace the bobbin winding tire. You'll see in the progress shots that Susie will post as we get closer to the end of the live stream, the bobbin that was on there was totally dried out. When I went to take it off using my little pliers, it actually snapped in half and was like powder, almost like powder. So this is a brand new bobbin winding tire. And as you're getting ready to wind a bobbin, you just push it in. And you can see that little thing drops down. Your bobbin's on there. And then as it fills up, that bobbin will start to push this away and disengage it automatically. And obviously, before you do that to wind a bobbin, you hold your balance wheel like this. There we go. Hold your balance wheel like this, and you turn your stop action clutch to the front. So you'll hold this in a fixed position. You'll rotate that way, counterclockwise, and then you'll be able to wind a bobbin without the needle moving down here, okay? What else? That's about it. Oh, when you're winding a bobbin, I'll just show you real quick. When you're winding a bobbin, you'll put your spool down here, right by the serial number. You see that serial number Y9026511. Oh, you know what? I messed up. Did I mess up? Hold on a second. No, I got it right. 9026511. Okay, I thought I had given you the wrong serial number. So Y90265. Okay, good. Thank goodness. I thought I had goofed up. So as you're getting ready to wind a bobbin, what you're going to do is you're going to put your bobbin here, put your spool of thread here. You'll come underneath this really cool bell, this bell tensioner, which is characteristic of a machine from the early 1920s by Singer. They had this really cool tensioner. So you bring the thread underneath that, bring it straight up, wrap it around a couple times around the bobbin, and then commence winding that bobbin. And this little hole right here, if you didn't know it, this little hole right there is a lubrication point for the bobbin tire to turn freely. Right now it's turning quite nicely. But you'll put just a tiny little drop in there, and don't over oil it, because what will happen if you over oil it, that oil will work its way to the end of that shaft and it'll get all over your tire, and then your tire will start slipping. So put just a tiny little bit of oil, make sure it doesn't leak through onto your tire, and that'll keep that turning very, very nicely. Very, very nicely. And if you ever have an issue where when you're going to, I had to adjust this once I put the new tire on. If you ever have an issue where you go to try to push it down to engage it and you can't push it all the way down, or you push it all the way down and it's not making good contact with the rim of the balance wheel. It's slipping. That's what this little adjustment screw is right here. See that little adjustment screw? There it is. That little adjustment screw, you loosen it up slightly with the bobbin winder in the up position, and then you just apply a little bit of pressure, slide it down to get it a little bit closer, and then tighten up your screw again, your screw right there, and then slightly adjust it a little bit more until you get a nice firm grip on that rim of the, and it latches in place nicely. See that? You don't want it too tight though, because then it's going to put too much pressure as you're trying to wind that bobbin, and you might have that treadle belt, a treadle belt like this, you might have that treadle belt starting to slip because there's too much pressure trying to get it turned. Okay? Yeah, it's good to know that. All right, let me lift that up. So let's do our next stitch row now, a short little stitch row, or at least a shorter stitch row. Try to get the camera in the right spot here. Tilt our screen down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. If you want a little bit of entertainment, I'll show you me turning it this time. Let me come out like this. Yeah, there we go. Let me shut off my notifications. We have cameras and they keep going off at the wrong time. See if I can shut that off real quick. There we go. Now I've got my notifications off. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this with my finger just to show you how smooth and silky this 1588 is turning now. And yeah, and then we'll launch off into some other sew-offs as well. So I'm going to hold that thread while I do that. Squat down a little bit here. There we go. All right, here we go. By finger, powered by Scott. Here we go. Isn't that a beautiful sound? All right, I'm going to stop right there. And now we'll have a chance to look at this stitching. Oh, that's gorgeous stitching. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. That stitching is like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Beautiful stitching. All right, let me throw these threads to the side. We'll take a look at this stitching. And then we'll be moving through some other materials. I still have to cut my denim. Now. All right, let me move the camera over again. A little bit closer. There we go. All right, so you already saw our first stitch row. And then we'll do a caliper measurement. And this is our second stitch row just below. Let me get into there. Look at that stitching, folks. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Wow. That is gorgeous stitching. Let's look at it like this too. Absolutely incredible stitching. Incredible stitching. I don't know that I can get it much better than that, folks. That's absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitching. Let's turn it over and look at the lock stitching. Equally gorgeous lock stitching as well. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch is just absolutely spot on. The only thing distracting is my puckering on there because that pressure foot pressure is turned up a little bit too high. But lock stitching, and top stitching is looking absolutely spectacular. I can certainly go smaller than that. We're probably, well, we'll actually do a measurement. We'll find out where we're at. Let's actually do a measurement. We'll find out where we're at as far as stitches per inch. Okay, so on that upper row, the larger stitch, let me get us set on an inch. My caliper moves so freely, I've got to kind of hold it in place almost. Okay, so if you look with me, we're set at an inch right there. There we go. That's an inch. And it looks like our larger stitch, 1, 2, 3, we're getting right around 6 stitches per inch. Right about 6 stitches per inch. You look at it like that. On our smaller row, with the stitching down there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right around 10 stitches per inch. Right around 10 stitches per inch. So we could go considerably smaller than that if we wanted to, but the 6 stitches per inch is telling you that we're getting real good, consistent feed from the feed dogs. It's telling you that that the machine is calibrated properly, because again, the goal would be to get around 6 to 7 stitches per inch. We're actually on the lower end of that with this Italian Singer 1588. So it's running it's running better than a Swiss watch right now. Running better than a Swiss watch and laying down some absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitching. Yeah. I won't try to go any smaller because I won't be able to distinguish the stitches. So I'm going to set the cotton to the side and let me grab a little bit of leather. See if I can grab some leather, and we'll sew some leather with this machine as well. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a little bit of interlude music while we're doing that. You can admire this lovely, lovely machine that belongs to Joanna from Italy. And I will get some leather cut. I don't think that's really Italian music, to be honest with you. I don't think that's it. It doesn't sound Italian. Maybe over here. Yeah, that's not Italian music either. I'm going to get notes from people in Italy saying, do you know what Italian music is? I think I do. I might. Yeah, I'll just put on some music. All right, I think I'm ready. All right, I'm going to pause that music real quick. So what I cut right here is some genuine cowhide. I've got 2 layers of it. I'm going to do a single layer, and then I'm going to add this second layer to it. So when all is said and done, we will have sewn through about 8 ounces of genuine cowhide with Joanna's Singer 1588. There you can see it right there. That is a lot of leather, folks, especially considering I'm going to be turning it by hand. That's a lot of leather, but I'm confident that this 1588 will be able to get the job done and get through all of this leather. We'll do a single layer and then we'll warm up to doing 2 layers of this leather as well. Okay. So I'm going to get that single layer in place. And I think when I do the second layer, I might do them back to back so that we can see that stitching more clearly than if I face the nap out. Okay. Although it's got a pretty flat nap, I don't know if that'll be a real big issue, but let's try to do a stitch row down this leather powered by me. And that extra presser foot pressure will really help us now. It'll really, really help and move that material evenly. So I'm going to try to get the camera nice and close. Almost got it. All right, there we go. And I'm going to turn this by hand. When I do the second layer, when we do 2 layers of this leather, I'll come with a more distant shot on the camera. That way you can see me turning the balance wheel by hand and know that I'm not using a secret motor or something like that, right? Nope. And I think on this single layer, I may be able to do it by my finger. I'll see if I can. All right, let me give a quick hold to the thread. And we'll crank this off. Okay, here we go. I know I'm speedy. I know I'm fast. All right, I'm going to stop right there. We'll take a look at our first stitch off through a single layer leather, and then I'm going to add that second layer. And I don't know of any other YouTube channels. I don't know of any other YouTube channels where they would try to pull off a leather sew off like this without the machine being motorized or being mounted in a treadle table. But God's given me real strong hands, so I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it. All right, so here's our top stitching on this single layer of leather, which is unbelievably beautiful. Unbelievably beautiful. And we are not using a leather needle. We're not using a leather needle. We're using a Schmetz Universal 9014 needle. And it's going through all of that right there. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. Wow. Wow. I don't think I can make it any better than that, folks. And I'll be curious to measure that to see if we maintained 6 to 7 stitches per inch. That's a lot of leather right there. Now we're going to be looking at doubling it shortly. But let's look at that lock stitch first on the bottom to see if, before we go through that second layer of leather, to see whether or not we might need to increase our upper tension, right? Because if you're going through some real thick materials like this, you might have to increase that upper tension to keep that lock stitch defined, right? We'll see how we did on the single layer. Very nice. Very, very nice. Yeah, I think we might bump it up just a little bit. So some beautiful, beautiful lock stitching. Beautiful lock stitching. And you can see as that needle punches through, a universal needle is not going to have a sharp serrated point. It's going to have a slightly rounded point. So literally like a punching press, we are punching through this leather. We're punching through this leather. And that's why you'll see between each stitch, you'll see that tuft of leather kind of popping up. as that needle punches through that leather. But I'll tell you one thing, that is brag-worthy. That is brag-worthy stitching. Absolutely lovely stitching. The lock stitching, the top stitching, it doesn't get much better than that, folks. It really doesn't. So what I'm going to do before we attempt this second layer is I'm going to go over to our upper tension right here. Let me step on the other side of it. I'm going to go over to our upper tension over here. We're only set on 5 right now. And I specifically set this machine up. When I set it up and I adjusted it and I calibrated it to get it ready for Joanna, I didn't want her, if she decided or if her mother decided to sew leather, I didn't want them to have to crank this all the way up to 9. That's ridiculous. So I calibrated it and pre-calibrated it so that it would be a lower setting so there would be a bigger range to work with. Does that make sense? So we're only set on 5 right now. I'm just going to bump us up a little bit for this second sew off we'll go up to 6. We'll go up to 6. You don't want to go much higher than that, or we might lose that top stitching definition. Because this, again, the upper tension is going to be pulling up to define the bottom of the material. The bobbin case inside of there is going to be pulling down. So they're in a tug of war. The upper tension is pulling up. The bobbin case is pulling down, and you have to meet in that happy spot in the middle. So you get a nice balance between that stitching like we're getting right now. So hopefully my judgment of bumping us up just a little bit, since we're going to be doubling the leather now, was the right choice. And I think I'll put the grain facing the same way. I'll put the grain facing the same way when we do this next sew off. And what we're going to be going through is probably 10 to 12 ounces of leather. You can see it right there from the side. Let me get real close. Anyone watching this live stream now or watching it as a video later, if you think it's easy to go through this much leather, even if it were in a treadle table, even if it had a motor on it, because this 1588 back in the day, it was made initially as a treadle machine, and then they eventually added a motor to it. But I'll tell you one thing, that's a lot of leather to go through no matter how you're doing it. No matter how you're doing it. And I'm probably also going to bump up our presser foot pressure as well so that we can try to maintain that feed as best as we can. Let me get a quick measurement real quick. Let me get a quick measurement. Where's my caliper? I set my caliper down somewhere. Live streams are always fun when you're looking for something and you can't get your eyeball on it. There it is. So when we did this single layer of leather, let me just see how we did as far as maintaining good feed. So I'm moving my mechanical caliper all the way out to 1 inch. Right about there. That's incredible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This machine is off the hook. Off the hook means it's doing fabulous. It's doing unbelievable. Even going through this leather, we maintained 6 stitches per inch. Now, I don't think we're going to be able to do that when we go through this second layer. I think it's going to end up, the stitches are going to be noticeably shorter because even when my presser foot pressure turned up, we're going to be feeding 2 layers of this over the feed dogs underneath the presser foot. And I think we're going to get a little bit of a slippage. It's not a noticeable slippage, but it's going to slip, which is going to shorten our stitch. It's going to shorten our stitch. So I want to get these lined up as best as I can. Get those underneath the presser foot. Presser foot down. I'm going to go up on top off camera. I'm going to turn up our presser foot pressure, which is this right here. I'm going to give it 1, 2, 3 turns to try to push down even heavier against that second layer of leather as I'm cranking this off. And I promised you I'm going to back up like this. Come up like this. There we go. And I may have to turn the balance wheel like this rather than with my finger, because 2 layers is going to be, that's going to be intense. That's going to be really intense. And also I'm going to get a couple of clips real quick so we can try to keep these lined up as best as we're able. I'll put it down here. All right. I'm going to get a sip of tea real quick. I'm going to get a sip of tea and then I'll be back to this. But I need a little bit of liquid refreshment to give me the energy to crank this puppy off by hand. This is thick stuff. Might need some music too. All right, let me see if I can stop it before the next thing comes on. Aha, got it. All right, here we go. 2 layers of genuine cowhide, hand cranked on Joanna's 1923 Singer 15-88. This is going to become her mom's machine. It's going to become her mom's machine. And I think she's going to have a blast with it, to be honest with you. All right, let me see how we can do here. All right, I'll hold that thread initially when we launch. Let's see if we can get through this. I'm going to back this up just a little bit. Hold on. I'll try to keep these rows relatively even. There we go. All right, here we go. This is my workout for the day. Okay, I'm almost at a point, I think, where I can take this little clip off. 2 layers, about 12 ounces of leather. This is a lot of leather, folks. This is a lot of leather. Let me take that off. I know I'm not very fast. I'm trying. Hoping we have enough pressure foot pressure. And if you didn't know it, these oscillating hook systems, like on Joanna's machine, they're much more tolerant of different types of threads. So if you are sewing, whoops, hold on a second. I think we got a glitch. Hold on a second. I may have to go to a leather needle if I'm going to do it on this machine. Yep, I might have to go to a leather needle. Give me just a moment here, folks. I'm going to put on a little bit of music. We'll see if a leather needle will do this. But I see that we're not getting the stitch result that I want. We're not getting the stitch result that I want. Let me put on some music. I'm going to change out the needle to a leather needle, and then we're going to move through some more sew-offs. Hold on. Let me pause this. Normally, not always. Normally, I'm able to pull off a thicker sew off like this with leather using the Schmetz Universal Needle. But in this instance, it was showing signs of distress. So we'll try it with this leather needle. This might do it. This might not do it. I'm thinking it probably will help. And I guess that goes to show, and the Schmetz people are probably smiling right now because they always want to emphasize their specialty needles and the unique purpose that they serve. And when you're going through this much leather, sometimes that universal needle just can't pull it off. Just can't pull it off. And that's not the machine's fault. That's just a fact of the limitations of that needle. Yeah. We'll give this a try. Otherwise, we'll move on to our next sew off. Even a single layer of this leather is about 4 or 5 ounces of leather. That's probably more than Joanna's mom is ever going to sew as far as leather. But we'll give this a try. The leather needle will definitely help us. All right, let's try this again. And I'm wondering, I talked about, you know what I talked about? We laid down this stitching like this. We talked about going same grain or reverse grain. Let me try going reverse grain, see if that helps the machine a little bit and works more with the needle. That way we'll have a smooth side on both sides, and we'll be able to see that stitching even better if we can pull this off. I didn't test this off camera. Did not test it off camera. I'm going to go into a separate little row here. That way we're not going over the same holes again. I'm going to give this a try. We'll see how we can do. All right, about 12 to 14 ounces of leather on this 1923 Singer 1588. I'm hoping I can get it this time with that leather needle help. And you'll notice when I put that leather needle in, I did put the flat side to the left, okay? I did put the flat side to the left. Get this going. Back this up just a little bit. All right. Take two. We'll see if we can get her this time. No guarantees, but we'll give her a try. We'll give her a try. Now you can see that presser foot actually kind of coming up a little bit as we're going through this. See it kind of popping up a little bit as it's trying to take to that motion and move to that next feed point on it, because this leather is so thick. Maybe I'll go down halfway and I'll consider that good enough. Oops, see? Though you get that extra little loop there, that means that thread was caught between those two layers of the leather, and in all likelihood, when it got caught like that, it missed the hook. So that means a missed stitch right there. If you can see that little loop, I'll show that to you real close. See that extra little loop right there? So I think we did pretty well up to that point, but I think we're going to have a skip stitch right there. We'll see. I'll go about midway and we'll see how we did. If we have 1 or 2 missed stitches, considering the amount of leather that we're going through, I won't be unhappy. I won't be unhappy. That's crazy, crazy thick leather. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Pull this out. Yep, exactly as I said. When we got that extra little loop, imagine that this leather needle, we're working with a leather needle now, as that leather needle is going through those 2 layers of leather, that thread can get caught like it did right there. Take a look right there. See where my thumb is? When I showed you that extra little loop, that's where that thread is. It was trying to go through all of this leather. Look at that leather. As we were trying to go through those 2 layers of leather, it got caught between the 2 layers just long enough that it missed the hook. Here we were going real well. Move my finger out of the way. Come on, camera. We'll do like this. Maybe it'll help it. There we go. So you can see right here, I'm also seeing as well, see the slight tilting of that stitch? This is our top stitching, the slight tilting of that stitch. That's an indication that I probably should not have adjusted that upper tension up because it took away from the bobbin case. And that's why we have a slight tilting of that stitch to straighten that stitch out like this other row over here, this column here, get it nice and straight. You've got to have a little bit more bobbin case pulling down. So bumping that upper tension back is what I'll do right when we move on to our next sew off, and it'll straighten those stitches out very nicely. But we had that one where as it's going through all that leather, look at the thickness of that leather. See if I do it like that, the camera will focus. As that Coates & Clark Dual Duty XP thread is trying to work its way through all of that leather, it got delayed, it got snagged, it got caught going through that second layer. And the result is it missed the hook. So we had that one skip stitch right there. But all in all, other than the tension factor, that's really a good result. That's really, really a good result. For this 1923 machine, I don't think they ever imagined this was a household sewing machine. They never imagined going through probably a single layer of leather, let alone 2 layers of leather. That's a lot of leather to get through. So I'm going to adjust this back a little bit. And let's move on to our next sew off. I'm going to try to do a little bit of U.S. Army grade canvas. And U.S. Army grade canvas is obviously a very tight, hard woven material. Very, very tight, hard and woven. And it's not easy to get through this stuff. I've got 2 layers right here. It's probably what I'm going to stitch off on. 2 layers of this Army grade canvas. And we'll see how we sew canvas with a leather needle. This ought to be interesting. See if we can sew this off with this leather needle and get her done. All right. And this one I can do with my finger, I'm pretty sure. All right, here we go. All right, let's stop right there. Yeah, very nice. Here's where I probably could have used that upper tension just a little bit more. It looks like our lock stitching is a little bit on the softer side. It's a little bit on the softer side. Of course, we are using a leather needle, and that's not the best thing to be using on canvas. But we'll take a look at it, see what you think. So here's our top stitching through 2 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. Kind of hold it like this. Our camera is really lazy today. Our camera is very, very lazy today. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Beautiful stitching. We'll go like this, look at it vertically as well. That is absolutely gorgeous stitching. 2 layers of US Army grade canvas. Now we turn it over and look at that lock stitch. You're going to notice that lock stitch is a little bit underserved. It's a little bit underserved. And that means that on this type of material, if we're going to be sewing canvas all day long, we would want to have a little bit more upper tension to pull that thread tighter. We did fairly well. We did really quite well, but we could do better and get even more definition out of that stitching, even more definition. But canvas, you can just look at canvas and you can tell right away, even just 2 layers. 2 layers is definitely not a super easy sew off. 2 layers is probably the equivalent for leather of about 6 to 8 ounces of leather. It's a very, very hard sew off. But Joanna's machine has done an excellent job. And let's see what we'll move on to next. I think I might do some denim. I think we'll do some denim next. I've got to actually cut some denim. And then we'll try going through multiple layers of denim as well. Let's see here. I was running a little bit behind today and I didn't get to all of my sew off cutting. So you've got to bear with me as I do this. Okay, so here's some heavy grade denim next. I'll try to get a little bit closer so you can watch this as we go. So we're starting with 2 layers of denim. 2 layers of denim right there. I don't know. What does the audience think? Should we try 4 layers? Should we try 6 layers? Should we be absolutely out of our mind and try 8 layers of denim? What do you think? Type it in the live chat, what you think. What do you think? 4 layers, 6 layers, 8 layers? And I didn't try this off a camera either. I didn't try this off camera. 4 layers, 6 layers, 8 layers. What do y'all think? Susie's saying 6. Okay, we can do 6. Oh, and I'm going to ask Susie if she would, when you have time, hon, go ahead and post those links for the Facebook progress shots. When I'm working on a machine like this one for Joanna or anyone else, I try to take fairly detailed pictures of the steps that I'm taking the machine through. And I did that for Joanna's 1923 15-88, and they're posted on Facebook. So Susie's going to put a couple of links up. There's a group 1 and a group 2 of those photos. And that way you can appreciate the depth of the service and the steps that I take a machine like this through. Okay. So we'll try 6 layers. Let's see, that's 4 and 6. Okay. And again, we're going to be trying to do this with a leather needle. Probably not the greatest choice. Probably not the greatest choice, but we'll give it a try. So 6 layers of heavy grade denim. Yeah, and then we'll move on to, I think I've got some snake skin as well that we might try sewing. All right. All right, let's give this a go. It's a little bit harder to turn with my finger. Six layers of denim. That's a lot of denim to go through. That's a lot of denim. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Yeah, very, very nice. Yes, you can sew leather with a leather needle. You can also sew denim with a leather needle. The last machine that I presented, I actually used a quilting needle to do embroidery, and it turned out pretty good. Turned out really nice. And again, with all these layers of denim, I probably could have benefited from turning that upper tension up just a little bit, because I'm looking at the lock stitching. It's good. It's really quite good, but it could be even better. So here's our top stitching, and I'll show you from the side what 6 layers of denim looks like. There's 6 layers of denim. Not a light sew off. Not a light sew off at all. So here's our top stitching. Really, really quite lovely. Come on, camera. Come on. I think I got this set to zoom a little bit. Let me try it like this, see if it's happier. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Wow. Little lint things grabbing on there. Very, very nice stitching. All right, let's take a look at the lock stitching. Yeah, very, very nice. I think it's a little bit soft. I think we could have used maybe just a little bit more upper tension, but all in all, really quite a lovely, lovely stitch. Let's look at it like this as well for our lock stitching. Yeah, so 6 layers of denim. There's what it looks like. There's what it looks like. Yeah, and there's what it looks like when the machine is doing a fabulous job. So I think 6 layers of denim is I mean, that's a tough sew off, but I was able to turn it with my finger. So it gives you an idea of mechanically how happy Joanna's 1923 15-8 is right now. Very, very happy girl. Very, very happy girl. All right, let me get some more tea. I'll put out a little bit of music for you all. I hope you're enjoying meeting this incredible machine that came all the way from Italy and has stayed in this family for generations. And now Joanna's mom is going to put this machine to use, which I think is super cool. That's definitely not Italian music. I think YouTube has misfiled something. So what I thought I would do real quick is we've done a lot of hardcore stuff. We've done and attempted to do some crazy leather sewing with this 1923 machine. We've also done just now 6 layers of heavy grade denim, but I thought I would move it to the lighter side with some vintage velvet, some vintage velvet material like this. And I've got a piece that I've already cut off. And I think we'll try going through 2 layers of this just to see on the lighter side if this 1923 machine can also handle the softer things in life, not just the hardcore stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this over. See if I can get this into place. I love the feeling of velvet, don't you? It just has such a cool feeling to it. Yeah, we'll get this underneath the presser foot. And I could adjust the presser foot pressure down, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I'll just leave it cranked up right now because we're ultimately going to be sewing in a circle with using my finger, probably a circular leather piece to wrap up this live stream in the end. And that way I'll be all ready to sew that leather. Okay. So some vintage velvet material, ribbon material, as I call it as well. We're going to go through 2 layers of this. I probably should use some of these little clips. See if I can kind of hold it into place a little bit better. Right about there. And maybe one more. Or maybe 2 more. Right about there. And one all the way on the end. All right, so 2 layers of vintage velvet. Let's give this a try and see how we do. I'm going to get my arm out of the way. I'll hold onto that thread just initially. And yeah, let's see how our stitching looks on 2 layers of vintage velvet. The velvet, you may not have seen it, but it has a real slippery acrylic type background on the back of the material. It's real slippery stuff. So that does make it a little bit more challenging for that needle to go through it, but I think we'll be okay. All right, let me give that a hold, and we'll give this a go. All right, I think I'm far enough along. I can take all my little clips off. And these clips were sent to me when I was back in Wisconsin from a dear friend of ours, Paula Noel, who lives in West Palm Beach, Florida. We've got cow country family all around the globe in about 126 different countries, and also all 50 states. So it's really a blessing to have a family that big, isn't it? It's good to have big families. And I'm sure in the Italian culture, big families are something that they also have. I would say it's probably pretty common to have big families. And I'm seeing something about this velvet with that acrylic backing on it. It really throws a whammy. It really throws a whammy to our lock stitch. Our top stitch is looking really good. But when we look at our lock stitch, you're going to see a waviness to it, which means that if we were going to be sewing a bunch of this vintage velvet material that has that acrylic backing, it's made out of, what is it? 29% acrylic, 9% adhesive. That's kind of scary. And then 62% polyester. So all of that said and done, all of that gobbledygook means that it's going to goof around as that thread is trying to get pulled back up tight. And it certainly did goof around with us. Let's look at the top stitching first. Look at it like this. Top stitching looks really good. Really good. Our lock stitching, not so much so. Beautiful top stitching. Now look at our lock stitching. Are you ready? Don't scream, because we know how to fix it. We know how to fix it, right? We know how to fix it by adjusting our upper tension up. All right, here's our lock stitching. Whoa! See that? See the waviness? It's loose. It doesn't have that tight definition like it's supposed to have. That's a tension factor. That's a tension factor. And in order to straighten that out, we've got to have more upper tension, don't we? We've got to have more upper tension. So I'll try to demonstrate that real quick to you. We'll try to improve on this, get rid of that waviness and make it more defined. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in again. The only thing we have to watch out for is we may end up affecting our top stitch if we go too far. So I better not go too far. Now we're going to take our upper tension right here. We're set right around 5, and I'm going to go all the way up to about 6.5, almost 7. I went to about 6.5, almost 7. I'm hoping it doesn't hurt our top stitch, but it might. So if you were sewing a tricky material like this with that acrylic factor in it and that polyester factor and everything else, you might not be able to achieve good stitching on the top and bottom unless you were to make additional adjustments to the bobbin case that's inside of here. Sometimes with the trickier, more specialized materials like this vintage velvet with that acrylic and polyester and the adhesive and all the other junk that they threw into it to make it beautiful, you may have to also make adjustments to the bobbin case so that it pulls down harder once we adjust that upper tension up to try to give us more definition on the bottom of the material. Okay, let's try this one last time and see if we get a better result. I'm guessing we will, but I'm thinking we might also, without going into that bobbin case, we might also hurt our top stitching. So let's see. All right, here we go. So some of these materials actually had adhesive built into the material, and that can goof you up big time, can't it? It can also stick to your needle and create all kinds of problems. The other thing we could do, and I didn't show it to you, I'll show it to you after we get done with this stitch line. The other thing we could do is we could also adjust the pitch of the check spring too, to pull up a little bit harder. I'll try to show you what that looks like. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Yeah, we ended up hurting the top stitch. I went too far. Watch this. This is hilarious, but it teaches a great lesson on how tension works, doesn't it? I decided when I adjusted this, I decided to go up to almost 7. That was too far. I should have gone to like 6.5, and I'll show you why straight away. Because as I suspected, we lost the definition on our top stitch, but we've got a beautiful lock stitch now. So here we had our first row on top. We had a decent looking top stitch. It was quite lovely. I'm waiting for our camera. Come on, camera. There we go. So look at our top row, much clearer definition. As we go across, you'll see a little bit of a looseness about that top stitch, especially over here. Look at that. I went too far with the upper tension, and that's a lesson for all of you. As you're making tension adjustments, do them gradually. Whether it's upper tension or bobbin case tension, do it gradually. Otherwise, you might go too far, and then you'll win on one side and you'll lose the other. See that? Let's go like that. We must be getting a delivery at the workshop. Hank is announcing the full alert here. Come on. Our camera's really lazy today. Real lazy. Come on. What, I got to go all the way out to there to get you to work? Come on, camera. Well, you get the idea. More defined, less defined. Now look at what we did to that. You remember what that lock stitch looked like, right? It was all wavy and nasty looking. Look at that lower row now. Does it look different? Dramatically different, doesn't it? So you can see the impact of tension. We had this up here, and then we got this down here. But we sacrificed, come on, camera. This camera's acting really goofy today. I hope that's not an internet issue. Hopefully it's not an internet issue. Yeah, we'll try it out here. So huge improvement on the lock stitch, but then we ended up hurting our top stitch. Okay? So tension is a big deal in sewing. I get calls, I get emails, I get text messages from people all around the world struggling with tension, struggling with issues of balance between the top and the bottom of the material. Sometimes it's a matter of they threaded their machine wrong. And when we walk through the steps of threading the machine, just like I did on Joanna's, they all of a sudden go, oh, wait, I did that wrong. I should have gone from left to right instead of right to left, or I did this wrong. And all of a sudden they discover it's an operator error. It's not the machine's fault. The machine is doing exactly what you set it up to do. But tension is something, once you understand the concept of tension, you right away can say, I know how to fix it. I know exactly how to fix it. Right? So I'm going to turn this back before I forget. Yeah, right about there, probably. All right, so why don't we move towards our final. Well, I told you I was going to sew snakeskin, didn't I? I told you I was going to try to go through some snakeskin. This is a snakeskin material right here. You can see the scaliness of it. And it's got this almost like a soft backing on it, so you could use it for, doing bags or purses or whatever you wanted to do quite easily. And I don't think I need to sew this whole huge piece because this stuff is hard to find and it's a little bit expensive. So I'm going to see if I can cut this in half and we can stitch 2 layers of this by folding it in half. We'll see if we can pull that off. And the scissors I'm using right now are Guggenheim professional tailoring shears. These are 9-inch ones. They also have 11-inch size, and they've got a bazillion other types of shears that they offer through their website, Guggenheim.com. And Stephen, a friend of ours, who sent us a bunch of complimentary Guggenheim shears so we could promote them through this channel, does an excellent job of taking care of the customer, not only before the sale, but after the sale as well. And if you ever have an issue with a pair of these shears, you can contact them. They'll mail you a brand new pair, tell you to keep the old ones. They've got a lifetime warranty on these shears. And you can cut leather, you can cut snake skin, you can cut anything you want to cut with them. They're really quite an impressive professional shear. Yeah, I really like what they do. All right, so let's try to do some snake skin now. I'm going to fold it in half. I'll probably have to use Paula Noel's clips again. I'm quite sure I will. We'll see if we can buzz down some of this, and then we'll do our final sew off. All right, I've got that in place. Let me get some of those little clips. And I'm not disappointed at all with the uh, the skipping of the stitch on that last sew off we did with those 2 layers of genuine cowhide. That's a lot of leather to be going through. A lot of leather to be going through. And I'm sure if we were to adjust a few more things, we would be able to get through it. But I'm guessing Joanna's mom will never ever be sewing 14 layers of leather. And as some of you pointed out, the machine just went through it like it was a hiccup. It was so easy for the machine. So this 1588 is really quite a treasure, not only to Joanna's family, but it's just a treasure intrinsically. It's such a beautiful operating machine, such a beautiful operating machine. And now with that new upper tension that I installed, she's dancing. This is her prom, and she's at the dance and doing a lovely, lovely job. All right, let's see how we do. And we're going to be sewing snakeskin using a leather needle. That's kind of fun. All right, let me hold that thread for a moment. We'll get going on this. And these are pretty high profile. I'm probably going to have to, can I get past it? It's real close. Yeah, I got past it. Yay. All right, let me take that one off. Take this next one off. I think it was Teresa that said she loves that sound. I do too. I've got to try to keep this on course. I kind of allowed it to pull apart a little bit there. I'm trying to keep it on course as best as I can as I do these last stitches. Yeah, it went off course just a little bit. Not too bad. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Yeah, it's adjusting that upper tension back from our last sew off was definitely the right thing to do. I think we've got some real good balance on this snakeskin. Some really, really good looking stitching. Yeah, that's lovely. Lovely stitching. Here's our top stitching on these 2 layers of snakeskin material with a kind of a felt backing on it almost. There we go. Wow. Absolutely spectacular. So if you ever wanted to make a wallet or a purse on a snakeskin, this is what that stitching would look like. Wow. Amazing. How did we do on the lock stitch? Let's spin it around and look at that lock stitch. Yeah, quite nice. Quite nice. Maybe need just a tiny little bit more tension on there. Just a tiny bit. But lock stitching is always the harder stitch to get right, isn't it? Because as that needle, just like we saw in those 2 layers of leather that we attempted, as that needle sweeps down through that second layer, it's got to pull that thread all the way back up through those 2 layers. And if it's delayed, that hook is not going to wait for it. That hook is going to go at the normal rate that it normally goes. And you're going to have a skip stitch just like we experienced. Beautiful, beautiful lock stitching as well. Beautiful top stitching. Beautiful lock stitching on this snakeskin. Look at the thickness of that. Not a light sew off at all. And snakeskin tends to be a little bit more of a dense, higher piercing threshold material. And this 1923 15-88 just knocked it out of the park. Beautiful, beautiful job. Beautiful job. So I don't know about you, but I'm impressed with this machine, this Italian beauty, as I like to call it, this Italian beauty that has just really, really demonstrated her prowessness and her capabilities in this live stream. You can't fake a live stream. I guess you could with AI and all the other stuff going on now, but this machine is the genuine article, and it did just a spectacular, spectacular job. All right, so we're going to do our final sew off now. I'm going to find some fun music and see if we can sew in a circle. You can see I'm running behind a little bit. I marked my circle, but I haven't cut it out yet. And I'm wondering if I should go with a smaller circle since I'm going to be turning this by finger. But oh well, I'll sew until I get tired and then I'll stop. So I'm going to cut through this and see if we can, yeah, see if we can do this final sew off. And appreciate all of you being in attendance today. Looks like we've got a nice audience. We also had the privilege of having the owner in the live stream as well, Joanna from Italy. Great to have her here, and great to know that this is going to be passed on to her mom, and her mom is going to be able to put this spectacular 1923 singer to work, hopefully for many, many more generations. Once grandma is no longer using it, maybe it'll get passed to a granddaughter or a grandson, and it'll stay in that family for a long, 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 long time, hopefully forever. Yeah, there we go. So I've got this huge circle now. I'm kind of regretting I made it as big as I did, but at any rate, it's a big circle. I'll see how I do with it. We'll see how we do with it. I'll start on the outside and kind of work my way in as best as I can. And thank you also to the moderating team for taking such good care of the family. What a beauty. What a beautiful, beautiful machine. Beautiful machine. All right, let me get some music on and I'll start sewing in a circle. Sewing in a circle. Yeah, let's see here. Maybe I'll put on some more ragtime music. Put on some ragtime music. God bless everybody. I'm still going. I'm still going. Well, thanks again for everybody joining us. I'll continue with this ragtime music so you can say your goodbyes. Thanks again to the owner, Joanna, and also the biggest blessings of sewing on her mom as she gets ready to put this machine to work quite soon. And again, unbelievable results today. 6 layers of denim. I just did a finger turned leather sew off with about 6 ounces of leather. Did all of these straight stitching pieces as well. Vintage velvet, I'll put it over there. And we did snake skin, I'll put that over there. We attempted 2 layers. You know what? We didn't do bad. We didn't do bad. It is what it is, and it did an excellent job. U.S. Army grade canvas. I'm running out of room here. And then just a basic sew off as well. I'll kind of put that on the end there with the straight stitching and the lock stitching. Fabulous machine, Singer 15-88 from 1923, Italiano style.